Hello, everyone. Pastor Tim here from the friendly confines of my home office, and I'm wearing a bit of informal attire today, mostly because I've spent the last 45 minutes out mowing my lawn. Thanks be to God for the wonderful gift of rain. I like mowing the lawn. It's a spiritual and physical exercise, but I haven't had the chance for the last 6 weeks or so because no rain. So thanks be to God for the rain that comes from heaven so we can engage in our spiritual and physical exercises. Hey, today I want to talk with you about a simple word in our faith, and that word is faith. It's foundational and formational to anything we do, to all that we are. And when we talk about faith, probably there's no more simple a definition than the one we find for us in Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1. And the author there says, faith is being sure of what we hope for. It's being certain of what we do not see. That's a great definition, but when we read those words and when we say those words, we realize it's a heavy lift. On our best days, we're there. We're certain of what we do not see. We're sure of what we hope for. But we all have different days in terms of our faith, and some were on a high mountain and others were deep in a valley. And what do we do when our faith isn't as it's described there in Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1? Woody Allen, who is by no means a theologian, and he's certainly not a Christian, but he does have a certain perspective on life. And Woody Allen one time said, I would like to believe in God, and it would be easier if God would just give me a sign, for instance, a large deposit in my Swiss bank account. Well, we're all with Woody Allen. It would be a lot easier if that were the case, but the fact of the matter is, that's not the definition of faith. Every Christian struggles with faith from time to time. That's why we're put together in a church as brothers and sisters. Now, there's an interesting man you should know if you haven't heard of him before. His name is Thomas Lynch. He is a funeral director in Milford, Michigan. He also is a published author and poet. And in one of his poems called The Calling, Thomas Lynch struggles with what I've described. He says, belief is easy when God speaks to us. The ordinary silence, there's the thing. The soul-consuming quiet, the heavens hush. It sets even the pious wondering. Lord, spare us all, we doubting Thomases, who even with a trembling finger in the womb still ask aloud, my Lord? My God? It's all of us, isn't it? So what do we do when we're in that situation? Well, I want to tell you a story about my preaching professor in the seminary. God rest his soul. He's now with the great saints around the throne worshiping God. His name was Bob Azell. And Bob Azell, at a certain time in our preaching class, told us how he ended up in seminary and, by extension, our preaching professor. When he graduated from college, he was sitting on the steps outside the convocation center. Willie, the janitor, came by. Bob was sitting there looking forlorn because he wasn't quite sure of the next step in his process. He figured it was either seminary or it was law school, but he couldn't make that decision and time was running out. Willie asked him, he said, Bob, what's the matter? And so Dr. Azell shared his soul, and Willie listened, and then Willie sat down on the steps next to him. And Bob said, Willie, I guess it just comes down to this. I don't know if I have enough faith to go to seminary. And here's what Willie said. Bob never forgot it, and those of us who heard him that day never forgot it either. Willie said to him, Bob, you may not have enough faith, but I have enough faith. You go to seminary on my faith. And that's what Bob did. Signed up for seminary, completed, and that's how we ended up decades later teaching those of us who may have been searching for our particular call too. I just think there's something theologically resonant about that. We don't have enough faith? Well then, go forward in my faith. Go forward in Joe's faith, in Beth's faith. We're put together as people in God so we can draw on the resources that are ours. And the resources are all around us. I just want to ask you today, have you ever had a time when your faith was flagging and somebody else, a Christian brother or sister's faith, is what carried you along at that particular time or at that particular moment? God knows, I'm sure we've all had that experience. And so if you're on the top of the mountain today at this particular point in your life, I hope you'll find that person who's down in the valley. That person whose faith is a little shaky. Because at this particular time, you can tell them how you're sure of what you do not see, how you're certain of what you hope for. And if you're down in that valley, I pray God's going to send somebody to you so that you can take the next steps forward in their faith. That's the gift God has given us in the church. And thanks be to God for that gift. Lord, send us what we need. Send us who we need this week. And Lord, if you've given us the gift of faith, send us someone who needs it. Thank you, and have a good week.